Shortly before airtime, I talked about how Washington is and isn't responding with Illinois Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth. Senator Duckworth, we heard words from President Biden today about Asian American hate crimes. He also acknowledged how difficult this past year has been for the community. As an Asian American, I'm wondering what you thought.
Well, I'm glad that he is speaking to this issue. It's a big change from our former president, who actually encouraged some of the very negative racist rhetoric that led to a lot of the increases in hate crimes. And so I'm so glad that President Biden did what he could to try to reset the tone and to acknowledge that.
Well, I mean, the White House still has not called the shooting a hate crime in Atlanta. Police have said what they've said. Should you see it as a hate crime?
I do see it as a hate crime. And this is part of the issue, is that hate crimes against Asian Americans are severely underrepresented, Anderson. We know just in the last year that the numbers of hate crimes against AAPIs have risen by over 150% in our major cities.
When you heard about the shootings in Atlanta, I understand you said you were shocked but not surprised. Can you explain why you weren't surprised?
I wasn't surprised, Anderson, because we have been marching towards more and more violent hate crimes against AAPIs. In this last year in particular, in the past 4 years under the Trump presidency, we've seen the increase in what people feel is acceptable language. And then now, you get to a point where we've talked about, okay, there's a 91-year-old Asian man was attacked, a child was attacked, Asian nurses were attacked even as they were helping people with COVID. The violence against Asian Americans is increasing. So I'm not surprised that it happened.
Is there more the Department of Justice, the FBI should do to kind of bolster their investigations into hate crimes against Asian Americans?
Definitely. And just yesterday, I sent letters to both Mr. Wray and also to Attorney General Garland, each of them asking for the FBI and the Justice Department to conduct an investigation into the number of hate crimes that have occurred in the United States and whether or not they have been underrepresented, whether a crime that has been reported simply as an assault or a theft or a mugging was really more hate crime related, and it was actually one that targeted a person's race.
Just this week, we heard the former president continue to use the term Chinese virus. Representative Rodney Davis said yesterday that he doesn't believe phrases like Kung flu or China virus are connected to this rise in attacks. Representative, obviously, Chip Roy brought up the idea of lynching as a favorable thing about in the good old days in Texas, at what was supposed to be a hearing on Asian American hate, especially from public officials like this. I mean, words matter, it seems, particularly at a time like this.
Words matter, and I am deeply disappointed in these officials for what they're doing. Frankly, the fact that Rodney Davis and Representative Roy would rather spend their time defending the hate-filled rhetoric of a former president disgraced with 2 impeachments instead of coming to the defense of their constituency, who are members of the AAPI community, is disgusting. And words matter. Public officials must step up and say, this is not acceptable. Because when you have members of Congress who say this is acceptable, then you're just allowing the hate speech to continue. And that very quickly leads to crimes and actual violence against members of the AAPI community.
You talked about feeling like an other, meaning other than American. I'm wondering if you can talk about your experiences, because it seems to me in this day and age, otherizing people it seems like it's only growing.
It is only growing, but it is the universal experience among Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders here in this country. My entire life, I understand, as recently as the debates for my Senate seat back in 2016, my opponent, a United States Senator at the time, questioned my ancestry and my Americanness and whether or not I was sufficiently loyal to this country because my mother is Asian American. I often get stopped and asked, where are you from, really? I mean, that happened to me all 23 years of my military service. I was wearing the nation's cloth, her uniform, with her colors on my shoulders, the stars and stripes, going into combat. And I would have people stop me, and ask me, well, yeah, you're an American, but where are you from, really? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I've been here. My family's been here since before the Revolution. I'm a daughter of the American Revolution, and I get asked those questions. But that experience, Anderson, is pretty universal across all AAPIs in this country, where we are often treated as the other. We're often, on the one hand, treated as, well, you're not sufficiently a minority to need any assistance or any additional protection. But on the other hand, you're really not one of us. And that just sets the stage for these hate crimes to continue and for hate groups to target Asian Americans. And it's not acceptable.
Yeah. Senator Duckworth, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.